And I can. And you know, in the picture, in the psych books or intro books that we have, it is presented also, and that's how I try to make sense of it for the purpose of navigating constancy and change. As a grounding, if I put one into the foreground, the other one becomes the background. Yeah. Or if I put one into the background, then the other one becomes the foreground. But it is, and grounding is an activity. Yeah, so it's not this versus the other, but it's an effort that goes into the grounding process. And that's exactly, I think, a way of looking at this navigation of constancy and change. Now, and I will leave you after 2 more slides and move into data, and then it will be more entertaining, I hope, for some of you. But the interesting part, if you look at it this way, is that notions like development, continuity and discontinuity lose their existence out in reality and become constructs in this process of navigation of constancy and change. Now, this is nothing new that I'm coming up with, because my teacher, Bernie Kaplan, in the tradition of Werner, the Wernerian tradition, development is something that is imposed onto what you partly also want to see. So it is a theoretical way of approaching whatever it is that you're approaching. And that is, I think, so important, at least to me, to become a developmentalist in my early career. And Michelle Bamberg, who was a graduate student in those years at Clark, I think I see her nodding, so that's good to see. But this is not shared among my colleagues, and now at Clark also, who are not part of this tradition. Okay, but other configurations, like transformations or transformation experiences that we in colleges now like to hear from our students, in particular that our class was one of those, or turning points, but also low points, high points, that these are constructs that are emerging in this navigation process of constancy and change. McAdams working with wisdom events, where particular experience, spiritual, mystical failures, regrets also are hitting the surface, or segments, chapters of life stories that we ask participants in the biographic approach. Coherence, again, is it in the data? How is it imposed? It is an emerging product of the navigation of constancy and change. And so are themes. What thematic analysis is digging up in terms of particular periods of one's life, what holds them together. So these are the kinds of constructs that come out, that emerge out of this particular navigation of identity dilemma number 3. Sounds a little good. So very briefly, let me touch on positioning, and then we move into something that is more interesting. A number of colleagues of mine and I, we ganged together and picked up on Bronwyn Davis and Ron Harry's early work on positioning, which actually also was grounded on Wendy Hallway's work in the UK, who wrote before them on positioning in her dissertation work. She just retired, I heard, from the Open University in the UK. Positioning, we try to look at in terms of 3 different levels. And these then are positioning levels. One is where we look into the story where Hansels, Gretels, and witches and weak fathers or the stepmother are coming to existence and are positioned in a particular way. But we start out, the analysis starts with that level. What is the content? Who are the characters? How do they sail through space and time? But the basic level from where this level is said to have been arrived at is level 2, and that is the situation in which a speaker moves into the storytelling genre. Why a story here and now? Yeah, why Hansel and Gretel, for instance. So it is the situation in which a speaker is trying to make something fictional or past, yeah, recent past, long time ago, is making relevant to the here and now. That's where the story and its content gain their constituency. And level 3 then is derived from the analysis of level 1 and 2, content if you want to call it, and the occasioning in the situation. That's where we can begin to analyze what discourses are being borrowed and pulled into it in order to do level 1 and level 2. And what kind of sense of self is emerging here in this particular situation by producing level 1 and level 2 as being relevant for the here and now. So the sense of self is a product, is an ultimate interpretive product, so to speak, from other analytic procedures. All right, so, and I'll get back to that at the very end, just to hit you with it one more time before we go to dinner. But now, let's turn to apologies, to sorries, confessions. And here we have two. You may know Bart. You also may know, because he himself is also Rupert Murdoch, and this Monday he hit the British press with a campaign in which, and interestingly also pronouns are wonderful. Yeah, it's not I am sorry, but we are sorry. Good, so that's kind of where sorry surfaced. Now here's a little bit more to really bring the message home.
Let me say this, and I want to say it absolutely clearly. I was wrong, and I am responsible.
I am very sorry for what happened.
I'm deeply sorry that I did not live up to what was expected of me. I sincerely apologize.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the American people. I'm deeply, deeply sorry. That's unacceptable, and I'm sorry. I feel that I need to do the right thing here and apologize. I would like to apologize. I felt it was time that you heard directly from me that I'm sorry. I was wrong. My apologies to CNN. I don't see why I should have to apologize.
I'm disappointed in myself, and I offer my deepest apologies.
Madoff stood and said, I am sorry.
I did take a banned substance, and for that, I'm very sorry. I've let down a lot of people, and all I can say is that I apologize.
I didn't mean that was regrettable.
I regret that.
It was wrong. I apologize.
I regret that.
I am sorry. I'm sorry, sweet boy. I'm so embarrassed.
I messed up.
I regret it, though.
It was a mistake.
And I was wrong.
Okay, so I hope this is convincing. Sorries, apologies, they surface quite a bit, and in particular there. They also surface around the dinner table. They surface on the email that you receive as a faculty member. So they are around. Although, in spite of this, transgressions and wrongdoings in the narrative realm, at least, are under research. Yeah, we have a bunch of other genres, but wrongdoings, there are a number of people now who moved into this, are hard to get at. So, let us turn to John Edwards. And I'm using a little bit, play this parallel to Dr. Lightman. I don't know whether you know Dr. Lightman or have heard of it. This is a show. Paul Ekman is one of the advisors. It's called Lie to Me. And it's the reading of facial expressions. This show, yeah, you read this and you know exactly what's going on, whether lying is the case or not. So I'm playing a little bit in that direction. Yeah, we are using also the term micro-expressions, and we are trying to analyze them. But we are coming more from a conversational, discursive orientation, you know, where these kinds of expressions mean something, but we have to go deep into the context in order to make the kinds of claims that Dr. Lightman, because he is a good actor, is seemingly reading from the surface. So, and we will look at John Edwards and the interview that he called in. He called Bob Woodruff and, from ABC and said, would you mind interviewing me tomorrow? And so the crew came out to his home on August excuse me, that must have been before August, but this was aired either the same night or the next day on August 8th. The event is volunteered. It's available on YouTube. So it's something to work with or possibly work with.